Welcome to the Fast Cat Podcast. I'm the Big Cat. Thanks for joining. And we have a special episode for you today. Oh, 1 second. That's not going to work. Whoa. Okay. Scratch that. Ben, let's start over. Welcome to the Fast Cat Podcast. That's not going to work either. We're getting some reverb here. All right. Pause for a moment, everyone. Geez, technology. Turn down the volume on YouTube. There we go. Okay. Thanks, everyone. 1 second. Here we go, Ben. Welcome to the Fast Cat Podcast. I'm your host, Frank Overton. Some call me the Big Cat. And today we have a special Ask a Fast Cat, Ask a Coach Cat, number 28 episode. We have 21 athlete submitted questions that are incredible, and we fed them over to CoachCat to ask their advice for these athletes, and we're going to read those today, and then I am going to make comments about the answer. We are going to give away a hunt wheel set to the winner, and let's just get into it. And real quick, before we get started, I did notice a lot of the athletes that submitted questions are not on CoachCat yet. So if you want to get on CoachCat, we have a free trial. No credit card is required. And then afterwards, you can save 43% when you commit to training with us for a year. We have a lot of new features. We have a mobile and a desktop. Of course, CoachCat, a custom plan builder. We have in-app coaching support, and Coach Justin will give you a complimentary coaching call if you want to talk with a real expert coach to get started and onboarded. So without further delay, let's get started and let's submit the first question to CoachCat. Here we go. Thanks for being here, everyone, by the way. Looking forward to this episode. We created these questions from our email list. So we sent out an email last week. Go to our website. You can subscribe to our email list. There we send out regular training tips, especially Training Tip Tuesday. Anyway, here we go. Gregory Kuzmike asks, is heat acclimation a substitute for altitude training? For example, if I have an event at altitude but live at sea level without the ability to travel to altitude prior to the event, is heat training my best bet for handling the altitude? Or are there two entirely separate physiologic systems involved? Okay, and so Coach Cat says, heat acclimation and altitude training affect the body differently, focusing on separate physiological adaptations. Heat acclimation improves your body's cooling mechanism and increases plasma volume, which can marginally help with the performance at altitude. However, it does not increase red blood cell count or oxygen delivery efficiency like true altitude training. For your situation, proven scientific altitude training exposure or spending time in an altitude training facility, if accessible, will be more directly beneficial for preparing for events at altitude. All right, there you go. Essentially, that is better than the answer I would have given. And by the way, the Fast Cat coaches and I, we did research. Those oxygen restricting masks that you see on like Instagram and on the internet, those are bollocks. It's just save your money. That is not an altitude training solution. Let's move on to question number 2. John Carroll asks, everyone talks about altitude's impact on cycling. I live on the East Coast, and humidity driving during the summer drains me as much as the altitude. Is there a way to train for humidity, as most of my races are in North Carolina, Kentucky, and Tennessee? All right. Coach Cat says, training for humidity is similar to any environmental adaptation. It's all about gradual exposure and physiological adjustment. You can start by slowly increasing the duration you train in human conditions, ideally in the warmer parts of the day to acclimate your body. Additionally, staying hydrated, balancing electrolytes, and wearing appropriate clothing can all help manage the effects of high humidity. If outdoor conditions aren't ideal, mimicking humid conditions indoors with a humidifier during workouts could also be beneficial. Great question, John. And I just want you to picture in your head Coach Ricky on the rollers in a Tyvek suit, as outlined in our heat acclamation podcast a few weeks ago. Okay. Question number 3. And by the way, we have over 20 questions, so I'm going to rip through them so we can keep this podcast to about an hour and not bore you. We have some bonus questions we'll release in a special episode later on next week. Question number 3, Guillaume Trudel asks, given your experience coaching numerous athletes, what is the most common mistake you observe among them? Based on your extensive experience, what is the best advice you can offer to address this issue? And CoachCat says, most common mistake I see among athletes is overtraining and not allowing sufficient recovery time. It's crucial to understand that gains are made during rest, not just through training. My best advice is to listen to your body, incorporate rest days, and monitor recovery metrics like your HRV and sleep. Balancing hard training with adequate recovery will prevent burnout and improve overall performance. Always aim for consistency, not intensity, as the cornerstone of your training philosophy. All right. And everyone, did you notice the word consistency was in Coach Cat's answer at the end? And me, that's the biggest mistake I see is inconsistency. And like, for example, taking the fall off from riding or riding sporadically. And everyone, in our 7 successful habits of masters cycling training tip found on fastcatcoaching.com, the best masters cyclists train consistently year round. That is my biggest piece of advice, is like not training consistently is the most common mistake. Good question, Guillaume. All right. Also, we are live on YouTube, and for everyone watching on YouTube right now, not too many. So if you have a question, drop them in the comments, and I will interrupt this episode to answer your questions. So hit us up in the comments, and we'll take your questions as well. And for you podcast listeners, again, subscribe to our email list. We will do more live YouTube podcasts again, and we'll announce the days and the times coming up here more regularly on our email list. Anyway, Todd Burke asks, as a master cyclist, 62 years old, riding approximately 12 hours per week, how much of my time should be devoted to zone 2 rides versus interval training? CoachCat says, for a master cyclist such as yourself, a good balance might be spending 70 to 80% of your riding time in zone 2 to maintain aerobic base and promote recovery, with about 20 to 30% dedicated to interval training to maintain and improve power and efficiency. This approach ensures that you get the endurance benefits necessary at your age while still incorporating some high-intensity work to prevent fitness plateaus. Daily adjustments can be made based on how you feel and recover week by week each morning from the optimized screen. And then I would add, the key here is interval training, because when you're building your base, the best approach is sweet spot training, a la pyramidal training approach. But did you also notice how CoachCat recommend checking your morning recovery, your training to recovery balance in the optimized screen, where we take your power data and the work and the stress you've accumulated in a rolling 7-day average. We balance that out with your rolling 7-day average recovery. We give you an optimized score, red, green, or yellow, and then we recommend adjustments to your training based on those metrics. And we've connected CoachCat to your health data to be a recovery coach. And so if you are in the red and you have a VO2 workout, you can ask for a custom workout substitution from CoachCat and get that custom workout substitution right then and there to tackle your day based on how you're recovering. It's genius. Thank you very much. All right. Aaron Amar asks, question number 5. What is the minimum dose for a neuromuscular training workout, such as high cadence drills, to obtain adaptations? CoachCat says, for neuromuscular training like high cadence drills, the minimum effective dose to see and maintain adaptations typically involves short, frequent sessions, generally incorporating 10 to 15 minutes of high cadence drills 2 to 3 times per week can induce beneficial adaptations. These sessions should focus on short bursts of high cadence pedaling, for example, 30 seconds to 1 minute, followed by periods of normal cadence pedaling for recovery. Consistency is key, maintaining the neuromuscular adaptations and improving pedaling efficiency. All right. Todd Burke says in the YouTube comments, thanks. Does CoachCat get the information through my Garmin stats? Well, CoachCat gets the information from your wearable data. And a lot of the Garmin smartwatches record your sleep and your HRV. And so we do not use the Garmin stats because we have a different way of measuring your training to recovery balance. We take in your raw data as measured by your sleep and your HRV. We balance that with your recent training stress, and then we give you your optimized stats. And we believe that is a superior way than using heart rate or other objective measurements. So great question, Todd. And Todd, I think I recognize your name because you got a question coming up, or maybe I just read it. Oh yeah, you were question number 4. Okay, moving on to question number 6. Brian Van Vliet asks, as cyclists, we try to know as much as possible about all the variables so we can maximize our training and racing. My question is, what is gravity? Okay, haha, Brian, touche. Gravity is a fundamental force in physics that attracts two objects with mass toward each other. For cyclists, gravity is especially important because it affects how you climb and descend. On climbs, your power to weight ratio is important. Conversely, on descents, gravity aids your speed as you go downhill, where your CDA, coefficient of drag, how aero you are, is important. All right. Hi. Good one, Brian. Thank you. Touche. Colorado Cyclocross asks, I just started the 6 weeks to cyclocross plan and doing my first VO2 max interval session as a type during a recovery interval. Wow, you're working out right now. Okay, awesome. There are lots of different variations of VO2 max workouts. Yes, there are. Continued, what are the most effective? 30-30, 30-15, or 4x4? Okay, great question, Todd. So I do not consider anything less than 3 minutes of VO2 max effort. So actually, the way that we define VO2 max is intervals between 3 minutes and 6 minutes. That's how long it takes to reach maximal oxygen uptake. Now, when you're doing 30-30s and 30-15s, that's what we call anaerobic work. That really taps into your anaerobic energy system. So that's zone 6. And then zone 5 is a VO2 work. And then the most effective VO2 max interval workout, I mean, there's really no one most effective VO2 workout. What the three that we like are 3-minuters, 4-minuters, and 5-minuters. So example would be an intermediate to basic workout would be 3 by 3 minutes on, 3 minutes off. Maybe an intermediate workout would be 2 sets of 2 by 3 minutes on, 3 minutes off with like a 6-minute set break. And then maybe an advanced interval VO2 max interval workout would be two sets of 3 by 3 minutes on, 3 minutes off with a 6-minute set break in between. And then what we do is we progress athletes from 3 minutes one week to 4 minutes the next week and 5 minutes to the next week. That's what we call the 3-4-5 VO2 max interval progression, which you can find in our Sweet Spot Part 4 plan, as well as the group ride plan. They're wonderful for increasing your threshold. For you, Colorado Cyclocross, I would really concentrate on your anaerobic work. So the 30-30s, 30-15s, what we just call those zone 6 anaerobic work. Awesome. Have a great cyclocross season. And Todd Burke, yes, we'll see you at the Steamboat Gravel next week. Thanks so much for your question. All right, let's move on. Alex Bonder asks, number 7, how can I optimize my macronutrient intake and timing to specifically enhance mitochondrial biogenesis during high volume training weeks while minimizing gastrointestinal distress and ensuring adequate recovery for back-to-back crit races? Okay. Yeah, awesome. Now, this is a fairly involved answer. CoachCat was really flexing here on the answer, but I'm going to read it to you. Optimizing macronutrient intake for mitochondrial biogenesis during high volume training, particularly with crit races in mind involve several key strategies. Number 1, carbohydrate timing. Number 2, protein distribution. Number 3, healthy fats. Number 4, hydration and electrolytes. And number 5, meal timing. Let's go back and get into depth with each one of those. Carbohydrate timing. Focus on consuming complex carbohydrates several hours before training to fuel your session and top up with simpler carbohydrates nearer to your workouts for immediate energy. This helps sustain energy levels without overloading the digestive system. Protein distribution. Spread your protein intake evenly throughout the day, aiming for about 20 to 25 grams per meal to support muscle repair and recovery. Consider including a protein-rich snack post-workout to aid in recovery. And then healthy fats. Incorporate moderate amounts of healthy fats from sources like avocados, nuts, and olive oil. Also salmon. Salmon Watts, got that recipe in the FastCat app. These can help with inflammation and provide dense energy sources, but keep them lighter around the intense training times to minimize the gastrointestinal distress. Like, don't have like a Salmon Watts bowl like in the 2 hours before you do your criteria. Save that for after or in the evening. Second from last, hydration and electrolytes. Stay well hydrated, maintain an electrolyte balance, especially sodium and potassium, which can be lost through sweat during intense or prolonged workouts. You know what's a great source of sodium and magnesium and electrolytes? A banana. And it's also carbohydrate rich. So I've been lately, me personally, I've been jamming on the, and by the way, this is me, Frank, BigCat, not CoachCat. I've been jamming on bananas lately before and after my workouts, especially in the summer. And then last thing, meal timing, what I just talked about, having bananas before and after, but avoid heavy meals close to your race and training times. Opt for easily digestible meals 2 to 3 hours before events and small, simple snacks 30 to 60 minutes prior if needed, such as a banana. All right. By implementing the strategies, you can support mitochondrial biogenesis, minimize gastrointestinal issues during races and training, and ensure effective recovery for successful races. All right, that was a big one. All right, let's move on to question number 8. Phil Heyer asks, what tips do you have when it comes to training for rides at elevation, i.e. greater than 10,000 feet, and events that are going to be hot? What about any tricks for dealing with the heat and elevation? Okay, and so CoachCat says, training for rides above 10,000 feet and in hot conditions requires special attention to both acclimatization and hydration strategies. Here are effective tips and tricks. Elevation preparation, gradual acclimatization. If possible, gradually spend time at higher elevations in the weeks leading up to your event. This helps your body adapt to the thinner air and lower oxygen levels. This is what's going on with everyone at Leadville right now. Good luck to all the Leadville athletes. Simulate altitude. Use altitude training or spend time at altitude simulation rooms if possible. Basically, try to spend time at altitude. Increase aerobic base. Focus on building aerobic capacity as efficiency utilizing oxygen becomes crucial at high altitudes. And then with regards to heat adaptation, it takes time. You got to hydrate more. And then clothing, of all things, it is hot. So you want to wear light, breathable, moisture wicking clothing to aid cooling. And at altitude, zippers are your friends. Like you lower your jersey zipper going up, you zip it back up going down. Great vest is really good. We know that from doing Mount Evans here, the Mount Evans Hill Climb here in Colorado. Nutrition, increase your iron intake. Consider boosting your iron consumption, as iron can help creating more red blood cells useful at high altitudes. Energy dense foods. Opt for energy rich foods that are easy to digest, especially in hot conditions when appetite might decrease. And then your pre-ride strategy might include pre-cooling and a strategic pacing, starting off easy so it's not overwhelming both hot and high altitudes to prevent like getting too tired too soon. If it's training, basically chill, get in your work. Pre-cooling, using cold water immersion or wearing cooling vests. Although hopefully as you go up in altitude, it gets less hot. So that's one advantage of going up there. And then finally, mental preparation. And this is a big one. And I'm really glad that CoachCat pointed this out. But it's expect slower speeds. Prepare mentally for potentially slower speeds and longer recovery times at altitude in the heat, and adjust your pace and your goals accordingly. On the podcast with Elliot about altitude training couple weeks ago, we talked about this. We talked about how your FTP essentially decreases 1% for every 1,000 feet, and you need to just like recalibrate your expectations when you look at your power meter. And my buddy Ben recorded a video with Lauren DeCrescenzo. He just released it on the podcast today. And she was doing threshold intervals, and Ben asked her, what wattage are you gonna do them at? And she said, I don't know, because I'm still acclimating to the altitude at Boulder. But if I was in Atlanta, in Georgia, essentially at sea level, I'd be doing them at 330 watts. And she went on to say, I might be doing them at 300, 310. So I like that answer from Lauren, because she said, I don't have a wattage target. I'm going to do them by feel, but she'd already prepared mentally for adjusting to the lower wattages. That's the one thing I would add to this answer that CoachCat gave. Adjust for slower speed, lower wattages. Okay. All right. Good one. Thank you for that question. Let's move on to question number 9 from Sampath Wikarakati. He said, what's the evidence that suggests perceived exertion scale correlates with blood lactate? And does everyone know what Sampath's talking about? When you do a test, you point to either like what's your rate of perceived exertion, like at a 1 out of 10. Some labs do 1 out of 20. But so he's asking what's the evidence that says there's a correlation. And I can say, before CoachCat answers, using a scale of 1 to 10, 7 is about when you've hit your lactate threshold. But anyway, let's see what CoachCat says. The evidence linking perceived exertion scales with blood lactate levels primarily comes from the studies exploring the relationship between subjective measures of effort, like the Borg rating of perceived exertion, or RPE, and physiological markers such as lactate concentration during exercise. Research has shown that RPE correlates reasonably well with blood lactate concentrations, particularly at moderate to high intensities of exercise. This correlation exists because both perceived exertion and lactate levels are reflective of the increasing strain on the body's metabolic systems. As exercise intensity increases, so does the production of lactate, signaling muscular fatigue, which then influences how hard an individual feels they are working. Studies have found that RPE can serve as an effective, non-invasive method to estimate exercise intensity and corresponding metabolic demands, including lactate threshold. This makes RPE a valuable tool for athletes, especially when direct lactate measurement is impractical during training or a competition. Adjusting training intensity based on how hard an exercise feels can help athletes train more effectively within their appropriate physiological zones. Keep in mind your own connection between perceived exertion and lactate levels can be influenced by various factors such as fitness level, environmental conditions, and individual differences in pain and fatigue perception. As always, tune into your body's signals and adjust accordingly. All right. That was a mouthful, CoachCat. And while I was reading that, I was thinking of that scene in Good Will Hunting when Matt Damon's character is in the bar and he's getting grilled by the Harvard students. And what's his name's character says, my boy's wicked smart. I love that scene. And that's what I thought of CoachCat just now, because I would have said, yes, 7 correlates to lactate threshold. But here you got a whole entire paragraph worthy of being in a physiological text. So great question, Sampath. Thank you very much. Let's move on to number 10 from Alex Salalas. And he says, is a high intensity polarized training plan or a sweet spot training plan the best for someone living at altitude? And CoachCat says, choosing between a high intensity polarized training plan and a sweet spot training plan is independent of altitude. However, here is my recommendation. For someone well acclimated to altitude, both plans have merit. If the goal is to maximize efficiency and performance without substantial fatigue, a sweet spot training plan might initially be preferable. It provides a good balance of intensity, to stimulate improvement while considering the challenges of altitude. Casey Affleck, everyone. Thank you, Colorado CX. See, I'm following along in these live comments. I love it. Yes, Casey Affleck's character. My boy is wicked smart. All right. Okay. I interrupted myself there. CoachCat goes on to say, however, if the individual is well adjusted, has a solid base of endurance, and is looking to peak for specific events, integrating a polarized model could bring significant gains in race-specific fitness and high-end power. Yes. Regular evaluation and possibly mixing up approaches throughout different phases of training could leverage the benefits of both methodologies. Always ensure appropriate recovery, particularly at altitude, to avoid the effects of excessive training stress. And everyone, excuse me, Coach Christian and I recorded 2 podcasts, in fact, a couple of years ago about the difference between pyramidal training and polarized training and why it's a false debate. And Christian researched and actually determined the most effective training strategy is pyramidal training first, and then switching to polarized training. And that's what we call doing sweet spot training, and then switching from base to race, and then doing interval training as the way that we prescribed interval trainings. That's what's everyone's familiar with, the polarized model. So pyramidal first, then switch to polarized is more effective than polarized all the time year round, or more effective than sweet spot all year round. So the answer is do both. Thank you very much for your question. All right, question number 11 comes to us from Thomas Nab. And he says, my question is for those of us who have kids and often train from 9 p.m. to midnight. Do you recommend a protein recovery drink after knowing we will be going to bed? Also, is your answer different for those doing the weight loss diet plan as well? All right. First of all, kudos to you for exercising and FTFPing after your kids go to bed. That shows a level of commitment that I really like to hear about. It is hard as heck to get up for a workout after 9 p.m. when you've already had a full day and you're probably already exhausted. Me personally, I can't do it. And so I have to get up in the morning, and then sometimes it doesn't happen, and then I don't FTFP. The struggle is real. So kudos to you for getting on the trainer, I'm presuming, after 9. Well done. But anyway, to answer your question, CoachCat says, for those of you with kids training late at night from 9 p.m. to midnight, taking a protein recovery drink post-workout can be beneficial, especially to aid muscle repair and recovery during sleep. Consuming protein after a workout helps stimulate muscle protein resynthesis, which is crucial for recovery regardless of the time. For those not on a weight loss diet, a protein shake in the evening is recommended. Opt for a drink that includes about 20 to 25 grams of protein. This will provide the necessary nutrients without being too heavy before bed. For those on the weight loss meal plan, this approach remains similar, but it's important to integrate the protein drink into your daily caloric intake. Choosing a lean protein source like whey isolate or plant-based protein without added sugars can provide the recovery benefits without excess calories. In both cases, consider a protein source that's easy to digest, like casein, which can provide a steady supply of amino acids over several hours, benefiting muscle repair while you sleep throughout the night. Heck yeah. Ensure that you stay hydrated during and after your workouts, as hydration plays a vital role in recovery and overall health, especially when training late in the evening. Prioritize a good night's sleep post-workout to complement the nutritional recovery strategy, and good luck. And then my coaching advice is, pay attention to how soon you can fall asleep after that. If your workout gets you so jacked up that you have trouble falling asleep afterwards and cuts into your total time of sleep, maybe reassess. No, on the other hand, if you can just get off the bike, chug that protein recovery shake, and then fall right asleep, that's going to be a winning strategy. But if you have trouble falling asleep because you just got so amped up, go for it. And my also advice would be avoid any caffeine before that evening workout. That might interrupt your sleep. All right, great question. On to number 12. And John Hamilton asks, if my plan calls for 1 to 2 intense workouts per week, should I count my long weekend rides as intense? What I mean is, if I do intervals on Wednesday and a long ride on Sunday, am I hitting the plan? And CoachCat says whether to count your long weekend rides as one of the intense workouts specified in your plan depends on the intensity and the structure of that long ride. Here's how to determine intensity level. If your long ride includes prolonged periods at or near your threshold, or if it incorporates structured interval work, it can be considered an intense workout. Number 2, use OTS to assess the effort based on how challenging the ride feels based on duration times intensity, your heart rate zones, and whether specific high intensity segments are included. Efforts over 200 often indicate that the ride was not only long but intense and therefore should be considered an intense ride. For your specific situation with intervals on Wednesday and a long ride on Sunday, if Sunday's ride is mostly at a conversational pace like zone 2, you could count it as an endurance ride, not as an intense ride. If it includes harder efforts like basically any time over zone 4, like hill climbs, fast segments, or significant challenges, then you might indeed count it as an intense session. And fitting the plan, your plan's requirement for 1 to 2 intense workouts per week would specifically be met if both the interval sessions and the long rides include these high intensity efforts. If the long ride is more relaxed, then it likely counts as an endurance session. To ensure you're hitting the plan right, adjust the intensity of the long ride as needed, or consider how your body is responding to the workouts. Balancing intensity with adequate recovery is the key to progress. Honestly, this is a great question. I think it's a difference between if you're doing like a sweet spot OTS ride, and this is me talking, by the way, a sweet spot OTS ride, as long as you keep that in check, you can kind of consider that a medium endurance ride, John. But if you're doing like a group ride or an Amex ride, and you're hitting it, or you're just doing a hard group ride, I would include that as an intense workout per week. And then also, oftentimes, depending on the plan and the time of the year and then what you're training for, we're going to have you do intense long rides on the weekends, because that like gravel, training or fondo training, because we're training specifically for what you're going to face. So the other parts of the plan on the other days of the week help you balance that training. So that's why we use the phrase FTFP, which is follow the plan. And so, following the plan is going to help you balance everything out. But it sounds to me like you may be doing a do-it-yourself plan. So just use these guidelines accordingly. I hope that helps. Okay, unlucky question number 13 goes to Trace Riggs, and she asks, after 3 years of racing, I entered and left the season with a mindset of burnout. How does one navigate burnout without forever burning out? I have heard horror stories of cyclists putting up the bike, never to ride again, and I do not want to end up in that category. Okay, this is a great question, because we're going to give you the answer that CoachCat says, and then we're going to let Coach Sierra step in because she was coaching Trace. Okay, CoachCat first. Navigating burnout, especially in a sport you love like cycling, involves balancing rest, rekindling passion, and adjusting your approach to training and racing. Here's how to effectively deal with burnout and keep your cycling spark alive. There are 7 keys. Number 1, take a break. Allow yourself a genuine break from training and racing. It's okay to step back temporarily to recover mentally and physically. Number 2, reassess goals. Reflect on what initially drew you to cycling. Set new, exciting, and realistic goals that reignite your passion without overwhelming you. Number 3, vary your routine. Explore different aspects of cycling or cross-training to keep it enjoyable and less monotonous. Trying mountain biking, cyclocross, or leisure rides can provide a fresh perspective. Number 4, focus on fun. Remember why you started cycling. Ride with friends, join a new group, or explore scenic routes to bring the fun back into your rides. Number 5, manage stress. Address other life stressors that could be contributing to your burnout. Effective stress management techniques such as mindfulness, yoga, or simply spending time with loved ones can be beneficial. Number 6, get support. Talk to fellow cyclists, a coach, or a sports psychologist who can provide strategies and insights on dealing with burnout. And lucky number 7, last one, gradual comeback. When you feel ready, ease back into a structured training plan gradually. Ensure it allows flexibility to prevent pressure and stress. Okay, And then Coach Sierra, who, as I was saying, Coach Trace and has specific coach knowledge, she shares. Generally, burnout can occur because of a combination of things. For example, a combination of expectation stress, poor recovery, and overtraining. The best thing to do is notice these things building up and take a step back to see how you handle them better. For the expectation or external stress, you need to figure out what is causing the training lifestyle to weigh so heavy. Do you need less structure or more cross training to keep it fresh? Maybe there are external factors causing a heightened stress level. So pull back on whatever you reflect on. Poor recovery is a big one. Athletes can get caught up in a state of poor health to heighten body inflammation and dehydration, which causes the body to always be in an impaired state. Usually, this is reflected with lower HRV and higher resting heart rates. When this happens, often sickness is the first indicator, is not sleeping well. Pump the brakes until all symptoms are gone, and that may mean just doing yoga. The last common factor is a buildup of too much training and maybe the stress put on training as well. You can still train and ride with friends and benefit. Just make sure you're enjoying it before you start training again. One method that is helpful is not riding your bike unless you want to. And if you have thoughts that you need to, then don't ride. Basically, yeah, like ride when you want to, don't when you don't. You should not solely be riding because you feel like you need to in order to succeed or do well to be happy. You should have a sense of excitement to ride and enjoyment. So hold off on the bike until that comes back and maybe do other things you enjoy, like cross training. Of course, a coach is there to help you through these things, and being open about how you feel will help the both of you in your cycling journey. All right. Thank you, Coach Sierra. I'm also just going back to the Casey Affleck wicked smile. I mean, that's great insight from both Sierra and from CoachCat. So thank you for your question, Trace. Have a great off season and fall, and we hope to see you back for the off season training and to have a great 2025 season. And also, by the way, the one thing I want to add, generally in my experience, including me, most cyclists do get to the point where they're really looking forward to the season being over. Like now in August, it's like you got one more goal event, and then you're really looking forward to that 2-week postseason break. It's something I used to look forward to, and I still do every year around October or Labor Day. And what I'm trying to communicate, it's just perfectly natural to feel this way. So recognize it, take the appropriate steps. And then I always tell athletes, like when you get the fire back and you're jonesing to ride, that's when you know it's real and it's time to get going for next year. So I hope that helps. All right. Question number 14 comes to us from Rolando Farich. And he asks, what's the difference in approach and training plans, workouts, and nutrition suggested for a one-day road race and a stage race? 4 to 5 stages the most. And CoachCat says, training and preparation for a one-day road race compared to a stage race requires different approaches in training plans, workouts, and nutrition due to their varied demands on endurance, recovery, and energy management. Here's how each aspect differs. And we're going to break it up into four components: training plans, workouts, nutrition, and additional tips. So training for one-day road race training plans has a focus on building up to a peak performance for a single day. Training may include a mix of endurance rides, high-intensity intervals, and race pace efforts to handle various race scenarios. And then stage race requires an emphasis on endurance and recovery. Training plans include back-to-back long rides to simulate consecutive race days, along with recovery strategies and occasional high-intensity efforts to prepare for repeated exertion. Okay, now that was training plans. Let's move on to workouts. How do the workouts differ? Well, for a one-day road race, workouts are tailored to develop specific capabilities like sprinting, attacking, climbing, depending on the race course profile. And then for a stage race, where you have all those profiles, it includes more volume with a focus on sustainability. Workouts mimic multiple days of back-to-back intervals. So like if you're doing a stage race, you're going to be doing some block training. And like the way that we prescribe that is like VO2s on day one of the block and like threshold the next, and then maybe anaerobic the next. It's hard training, no doubt. Nutrition. One-day road race. Nutrition focuses on carb loading the days before and ensuring adequate hydration and energy take during the race. And then stage races, nutritional strategy extends to maintaining glycogen stores over several days, emphasizing recovery snacks, meals, and high protein and carbohydrate immediately post-race and ensuing ongoing hydration. Additional tips are recovery is critical in stage races, incorporating active recovery, adequate sleep, perhaps massage or compression to aid in recuperation. Mental stamina, prepare mentally for the demands of a multi-stage event and stage races, which can include developing strategies to stay mentally engaged and positive across the stages. And finally, equipment and logistics. And I'm so glad CoachCat included this. For stage races, consider logistic aspects like bike maintenance, clothing in varying weather conditions, managing energy levels, and effectively across all stages. In conclusion, the primary difference lies in the endurance and recovery focus for stage races versus the peak performance targeting in one-day events. Adjusting the training intensity, duration, and nutritional strategies accordingly will help in optimizing performance for either type of race. Both require careful planning and execution to succeed. All right, now that was a mouthful. Scott Olson is question number 15, and he asks, what monthly training schedule would you recommend for a 40-year-old cyclist with no target event who trains year-round to get fitter? I've been cycling for a few years and done a year of sweet spot intervals. I don't own a car, so I use my bicycle as my primary means of transportation, which contributes to 15 hours of activity most weeks. My FTP is 3.8 watts per kilogram, and I'd like to get to 4 watts per kilogram. All right. CoachCat says, great commitment to cycling, and your goal of reaching 4 watts per kilogram is definitely attainable with structured training. Here are my recommendations for a monthly training schedule. Week 1, build volume and focus on long rides in zone 2 and sweet spot, aiming for about 10 to 12 hours this week, and include one structured sweet spot session to maintain intensity. Week 2, introduce intervals. Continue with the zone 2 rides, adding in 2 interval sessions. These could be VO2 max or high sweet spot intervals to push your limits gradually. Week 3, mixed intensity balance. This week is 2 sweet spot sessions with a long zone 2 ride and 1 recovery ride. This mix helps improve endurance and threshold. And week 4, active recovery. Take a rest week. Scale back this week with lighter, shorter rides, mainly in zone 2. And this is your recovery week, crucial for recovery and adaptation. And then field test at the end of the week. So get fresh, take the rest week, recover, get fresh, test. Yeah, stomp on those pedals. Then CoachCat's finishes with, remember to incorporate daily commuting as part of your low intensity volume, adjusting the training accordingly to avoid overtraining. See our 4-week group ride training plan available in the FastCat app that could also be named Increase Your FTP Plan. All right. Well, I like that little plug there at the end. Okay. Question number 16 comes to us from Lucas Gutweiler. And he says, how would you prepare for track racing state champs? Different events every week for the next month if you've been out for the last month with an injury. Okay. CoachCat says, returning to track racing after an injury, especially with the state championships looming, requires a carefully structured approach to rebuild fitness without risking re-injury. Here's a step-by-step plan to prepare. And we're going to go through weeks 1 through 4 and talk about nutrition and last-minute preparation. So week 1, initial assessment. Consult with your healthcare provider to confirm your readiness to resume training. Begin with light cycling, focused on mobility and flexibility, exercises to enhance joint range and muscular functionality, and start with low intensity to gauge how your body responds and keep sessions short, 20 to 30 minutes. Week 2, gradually increase your intensity, increase the duration of the rides, maintain a low to moderate intensity, incorporate longer rides at a comfortable pace. And skill work, start including some specific track skills like riding at different lines on the track, basic handling, and light tempo efforts. Week 3, get intense and be specific. Structured workouts with interval training tailored to your events that might include short sprints, standing starts, or pursuit style intervals depending on the events you'll compete in. and technique. Pay attention to technique, ensuring efficiency and safety are prioritized. Week 4, pre-competition sharpening. And it involves mock races and a taper and an equipment check. So mock races, if possible, simulate race conditions with a few high-intensity efforts that mimic the length and output of your upcoming events. Taper, reduce the volume of training while maintaining intensity to ensure freshness for the race. Equipment check, fine-tune your bike setup and ensure all equipment is competition ready. Finally, nutrition and recovery. Focus on a balanced diet rich in proteins for muscle repair, carbohydrates for energy, and fats for inflammation management. Implement active recovery sessions, massage, adequate hydration, quality sleep to promote healing. And finally, mental preparation. Include visualization and mental rehearsal of races to boost confidence and focus. And also, last-minute preparation. Plan and practice your race day routine, including warm-up, nutrition, race strategy to minimize day of stress. Stay flexible. Be ready to adjust based on how your body responds. Listen to it and pull back if necessary to prevent further injury. Since each week of the state champs involves different events, fine-tuning your weekly training to focus on the specific demands of the upcoming event. Success here will depend on balancing the urgency of competition, preparation with health and limitations of your body post-injury. Remember, coming back at 80% capacity and performing well is better than pushing too hard and risking further downtime. Now, that is the key statement right there. Great, great advice. Okay, everyone, we are getting there. We are on question 17. And Thomas Wagner says, as a 64-year-old gravel racer with lots of riding and training experience, aiming at my first crusher in the Tusher next summer, I sometimes struggle with knowing how hard to make certain workouts. I've been using both the basic and the intermediate sweet spot plans over the last few years, and they've been very effective. But some of the structured workouts seem too easy, and some seem too hard. So my question is, how do I know when to do a harder workout as it's written in the plan and when to make it a bit easy? All right, great question, Thomas. CoachCat says, balancing workout intensity, especially with your experience and goals, can be tricky, but very important. Here are 3 guidelines. And you may also ask me and optimize every morning in the training to recovery balance screen. I am here to help. And everyone, I'm so glad CoachCat said this, because this is why we designed it this way, is once you get your training and your recovery balance, red, green, yellow, you get an AI analysis of your recovery status that morning and your readiness to train. And then you have the option of making adjustments to your workout and asking questions and then getting that custom workout adjustment by CoachCat on the fly like that. So that would be my biggest advice, Thomas, is use CoachCat like that with these 3 considerations. Number 1, listen to your body. If you're feeling strong and energetic, it's okay to push through the planned harder workout. However, if you notice signs of fatigue or prolonged recovery times, it may be wise to ease the intensity or volume. All right. Number 2, monitor your recovery. Use heart rate variability and sleep as indicators can help determine if your body is well recovered and ready for a harder session. If these metrics are off, consider scaling down the intensity. Number 3, adapt the workouts. Start the workout as planned and gauge how your body responds during the initial phases. If you feel unusually strained, there's no harm in reducing the intensity or the duration. Conversely, if a workout feels too easy, it might be a sign that you're ready to increase the challenge slightly. Implementing these strategies within your training can help you optimize each session according to your current state, ensuring progression towards the crusher and the tusher. And this last one, adapt the workouts in real time, is like genius, because now this is why we say don't use the erg mode, because guess what? If you're on fire that day and you're doing sweet spot intervals and you want to push harder, go ahead and make them threshold, push. And then also similarly, if you're doing like VO2 max intervals and you're doing 4 and you get to the 3rd one and you just do not have it anymore, go ahead and make them threshold intervals or make them sweet spot intervals. And you can't do that on the erg mode. So you got to feel it and then be able to adjust it. And that's why we have we recommend to all athletes, turn off the erg mode, and you can do these workouts manually on outside or inside, just using feel. And then also we know that some athletes are asking CoachCat during the recovery intervals while they're doing it. And it's like, so you could, if in doubt, ask CoachCat. And so get that feedback. And I think that's what Colorado Cyclocross was doing during his interval workout tonight, posting a question in our post in the YouTube comments. Anyway, point is, listen to your body, monitor your recovery, and adapt the workouts. And you can even adapt those on the fly. Question number 18, Dave Wall asks, how best to make the transition between 3-hour style gravel racing into the cyclocross season? All right, cyclocross is here. It's that time of the year. Great question. CoachCat says, transitioning from longer gravel races to the high intensity, short duration demands of cyclocross requires a focused shift in training, equipment, setup, and skills. Here are 7 strategic approaches to make this transition smooth and effective. Number 1, adjust your training focus. Number 2, skills development. Number 3, strength and conditioning. Number 4, bike setup and equipment. Number 5, race simulation. Number 6, nutritional adjustments. And number 7, adjust your mindset. Now let me go back and read each one of those one by one. With regards to adjusting your training, reduce the volume of long endurance rides and integrate more high-intensity interval training. Sessions should include short, sharp efforts that mimic the intense bursts of cyclocross racing. Additionally, incorporate specificity, quick accelerations, frequent dismounts, and practice your skills on technical terrain. Include drills such as barrier jumps, running with the bike, and tight cornering. And practice your starts. The starts in cyclocross are crucial. Practicing explosive starts once or twice a week can greatly improve race performance. I love that answer. All those workouts are in our 6 weeks to cyclocross training plan, which you should be doing right now in August, and then switch over to the cyclocross intervals plan for another 6 weeks. But moving on, number 2, skills development. Dedicate time each week to practicing your cyclocross specific skills like off-camber riding, sand sections, and mud handling. Dismounts and remounts, seamless transitions off and onto the bike are pivotal in cyclocross, and regular drills make these movements second nature. Additionally, strength and conditioning, core and agility. Cyclocross requires strong core and good agility. Incorporate exercises that enhance body balance, agility, and explosive power. Plyometrics, yes. Short, explosive plyometric exercises can improve your ability to handle the dynamic and physically demanding nature of cyclocross racing. And then finally, second to last, bike setup and equipment. No, sorry, third to last. Gosh, we got to show you a bunch more. Bike setup. Transition from a gravel bike setup to a cyclocross bike. Pay attention to the differences in tire pressure, tread, and gearing. And cyclocross skills can be harsh on your equipment, so being proficient in quick maintenance like changing a tire or cleaning the drivetrain post-race or training session can save valuable time. And then race simulation, mock races, Wednesday Worlds, practice cyclocross races. Before the season starts, participate in or set up a mock cyclocross race. This will help you adjust to the pace and the unique challenges. Training courses. Set up a training course that includes common cyclocross features like barriers and tight turns and varied services. Nutritional adjustments. With increased intensity, your recovery meals need to also increase protein intake and overall caloric quality to ensure recovery and muscle repair. Also on race day, cyclocross races are short, so unlike gravel races, focus more on pre-race nutrition that includes easy to digest carbs and minimal during race nutrition. Finally is a shift in your mindset. Adopt the cyclocross mindset. Embrace the fast-paced and sometimes chaotic nature of cyclocross compared to the steadier, prolonged effort in gravel racing. Well, that was a doozy of an answer. All right. If I could sum that up, you want to go to being a rocket from a diesel. So like a sports car, maybe from a diesel engine like gravel. Gravel's all about the diesel and going medium hard, whereas cyclocross is explosive anaerobic power but for a much shorter time. So great question, and good luck with your transition from gravel to cyclocross. All right, Josh Hoover, question number 19, and we're going to do question 21 and 22, and then that's going to be the episode for today, and we'll save all the other questions for a bonus episode to be aired later on. Anyway, question number 19, Josh Hoover. Living in Las Vegas, the summers are brutally hot, even with leaving super early in the morning, sometimes at 4 a.m. Using ice socks, ensuring proper hydration, proper fueling, it's not unusual for heart rates to start jumping up pretty fast and staying up there. When doing zone 2 rides in these very hot conditions, how does one balance training against power and heart rate? I can keep the zone 2 power at the lower levels, but my heart rate in the heat will normally creep up into zone 3 plus levels. And if it's hot enough, never return to zone 2. So question is, should I drop the power levels even further, or is it okay to have elevated heart rates in the heat while doing low to mid zone 2 power? Am I getting the benefit of zone 2 when my heart rate is going above that zone? All right. And then so CoachCat says, here are 3 ways to balance your training. Number 1, prioritize power over heart rate. In extreme heat, your heart rate may not accurately reflect your effort due to increased cardiovascular strain from cooling your body. Focus on maintaining your zone 2 power, even if your heart rate drifts into higher zones. Number 2, accept higher heart rates. It's generally okay for your heart rate to be elevated in hot conditions, as long as you feel okay and are not showing signs of heat exhaustion. Ensure you're well hydrated and listen to your body. Number 3, even with higher heart rates, staying with your planned power zones ensures you're working the intended energy systems. The physiological adaptations from zone 2 training, like mitochondrial density training and efficiency, still occur. If consistently high heart rates concern you, consider slightly lowering your power targets on exceptionally hot days to prevent excessive cardiovascular strain. Monitoring your perceived exertion and overall well-being during these rides can also guide adjustments. Great answer, Josh. Also, one thing that I have this conversation with athletes all the time that live in your neck of the woods, Las Vegas, anywhere in Arizona right now, Texas, the South. Like, one thing you can do is, I hate to say it, but train indoors in the summer. And there you can crank the AC, or at least not expose yourself to 100 degrees. And even if you don't have AC, use a fan in a cool room, and maybe so it's 75 or something like that. You're going to incur a lot less physiological stress. I know it's not as fun, but sometimes you're going to balance the physiological stress with the opportunity to not, just whack yourself so much with the training in the heat, because sometimes, you can do a 2-hour ride in the heat and you get in the training, but you're just wrecked for a few days. And you do that like over and over and over. It's like, you really got to pay attention to that. So I know a lot of athletes who successfully train indoors in extreme heat in order to mitigate the physiological stress of extreme heat. You can try it. You don't have to do it all the time, but just balance it out. Okay. Question number 20. Dan Carney asks, what's the most important thing for a master's athlete to master? I'm 60 now, and I notice that I have to prioritize recovery much more. That means sleep is more important, and I have to temper my enthusiasm for multiple hard rides without a day's rest. And CoachCat says, absolutely, for a master's athlete like yourself, mastering recovery is intended to be the key to success. As you age, your body requires more time to repair and adapt to the stresses of training. Prioritizing recovery helps in maintaining a high level of performance and reducing the risk of injury. Here are 4 key areas to focus on. Number 1, optimize sleep. Sleep quality is crucial for recovery. Aim to 7 to 9 hours of good quality sleep per night, and consider incorporating a nap if your schedule allows, especially after hard rides. Number 2, active recovery and rest days. Incorporate active recovery days with light activities such as walking or easy spinning, and ensure you have complete rest days. These allow your body to rebuild and come back stronger. Number 3, nutrition and hydration. Focus on a balanced diet rich in proteins, carbohydrates, and fats. Stay hydrated before, during, and after long rides. Proper nutrition supports muscle repair and overall recovery. And finally, number 4, pay close attention to how your body feels and responds to the training. Modify intensity and volume based on signs of fatigue or stress. Great question. Basically, like you said it, you got to reduce your overall volume and then maybe, do less interval days. But yeah, great question. Good luck. Also, use the optimized training to recovery balance. That'd be my advice also. And then also, most of our plans are master's based, except for the advanced one. Don't do that if you're a master's. So a basic or intermediate, we balance the training and recovery based on recovery weeks and the number of rest days and the easy days, the hard days. We really take that thinking out of it. So really all you have to do is FTFP and you're going to be fine and good. Listen to your body. All right. Second to last question from Mitch Hopkins. And he asks, if you carb up on every ride, it gets expensive. The 6-hour ride can end up costing you $15 to $20 or more, depending on your chosen carb drink, carb gels, blocks, etc. What is the best economical choice for getting carbs into your system during rides? Straight up sugar water mix, or are there other options? And CoachCat says, finding economical ways to fuel long rides can definitely make a difference in your overall cycling. Here are 4 cost-effective solutions for carbohydrate intake during your long rides. Number 1, homemade energy drinks. Mixing your own carbohydrate drink can be significantly cheaper. A basic recipe can include water, high glycemic carbohydrate source like table sugar or honey, and a pinch of salt for electrolytes. You can flavor it with a bit of juice or natural flavor extracts. Number 2, homemade energy bars. Number 3, do-it-yourself energy gels. And then also, I want to add, long ago, and this is Frank talking. Long ago, we published a homemade Cliff Bar recipe, and boy, was it a hit. And we made it from Quaker Oats. But then also nowadays, the Scratch Labs rice cakes, they're money. They're super, super good. The recipe is on their website, and you can make those. It takes a little bit extra effort, but you can make them quite economically. So anyway, back to CoachCat. Do-it-yourself energy gels. You can make homemade energy gels using ingredients like honey, molasses, or maple syrup mixed with a little salt. You can even blend in fruits or flavor for additional nutrients. Number 3, solid foods. For longer rides, solid foods like bananas, raisins, dates, or homemade rice cakes. There you go. The homemade rice cakes can be economical and effective. Simple sandwiches with jam or honey are also great for sustained energy. Yeah, like a good old-fashioned PB&J. Number 4, bulk purchase. Buying ingredients or products in bulk can reduce cost. Look for large size or generic brands of sports drink powders and gels that offer the same nutritional profile at a lower price. Experiment with these options to find what works best for you in terms of taste, digestion, and convenience on the bike. All right, everyone. We have been at this for a little over an hour. We are going to get to it with the last question, number 22 from Dr. Glenn Newell. And congrats on your master's race in Augusta a couple weeks ago. Congratulations. And there's a lot more improvement where that came from. Tip of the iceberg, as we like to say, Dr. Glenn. But Dr. Glenn asks, it's that time of year when road racing is over, but it's too early to start the off-season. Off-season training. What's the best way to transition between now and the months ahead? And CoachCat says, transitioning from the racing season to the off-season is crucial for long-term performance and recovery. Here's an efficient way to manage this period. Number 1, after your last race, reduce the intensity and the volume of the rides. This 2 to 4 week period could include light cycling, cross-training, hiking, swimming, and even fun rides without any structured goals. Number 2, reflect and evaluate. Use this time to review your past season. What were your strengths and weaknesses? Gather insights to plan for next year, considering what worked well and what could be improved. Number 3, maintenance workouts. Maintain a base level of fitness throughout moderate workouts to keep you active but aren't overly taxing. This includes riding at a comfortable pace and maybe even some light strength training. Number 4, mental break. Allow some time to detach mentally from the rigors of structured training and racing. Engage with other hobbies or spending time with family and friends to rejuvenate your mental energy. Number 5, planning ahead. Begin setting goals and structuring a plan for next season. Decide when to start your off-season training based on your targets for the upcoming year. Transitioning wisely, and we do so. This is me talking. We do recommend a 2-week postseason break. We got a wonderful training tip on our website. You're coached by Coach Justin, so he's going to take care of you there and give you advice. But here's the thing about the postseason break: take it. Don't ride the bike. And if you do, make sure it's like what Coach Sierra said, only when you want to. And then when you're really chomping at the bit like a caged tiger, then you're ready to start training again. You feel refreshed and both physically and mentally. Do not come back too soon, because that's when, if you come back too soon, it may initially be okay, but you don't want to burn out in January, February. So don't come back too soon. Really consult with the coach, or really just take a good 2-week break. If you're in doubt, make it 3. And then also, this is just me advising, just do a bunch of fun riding. You're getting in great maintenance training. But I do fall foliage rides. We have, like, Phil Gaiman's made the soul ride really famous, but like social rides, charity rides, ride with your spouse who may be slower. That's a great one. Or kids, take the kids bike riding, and then do some exploration, ride a different kind of bike. Like if you're a roadie, go ride a mountain bike. If you're a gravel person, get on the road bike. Just make sure it's fun, and cross training. This is like wonderful. Like what CoachCat said, like you could do some light running or swimming. Maybe like you used to be really into playing tennis, and go play tennis, or maybe you like to hike and go do that. Or maybe you like ultimate frisbee. Really, the sky's the limit. The point is, have fun, be flexible. You don't need to follow a super duper rigorous training plan year round. This would remind me of your question, Trace. The best athletes, they don't live like monks year round and follow a training plan rigorously. In the fall, generally, a good coach will have their athletes follow a training plan loosely with guidelines and 0 intervals and more, like talking about conception. So anyway, that's all the questions we have time for today. Like I said, we'll do a bonus episode follow-up real soon. If you like the answers CoachCat provided and you want to specifically ask your question and get personalized coaching advice, head on over to fastcatcoaching.com and start a free one-month trial. No credit card is required, and after that, you may save 43% when you subscribe for the year. And that's it. This is Big Cat signing off, and personally, I've been blown away by CoachCat's answers today, and I shouldn't be surprised, since I and our team of engineers, we train CoachCat on our 20 years of coaching experience and knowledge. So go ahead and give CoachCat a try for yourself. All right. With that, I will bid everyone adieu. And you know what to do. Work hard, ride fast, have fun. And above all, remember, consistency is the key to FTFP. Thanks for listening, everyone, and we'll see you back here next week. All right. Thanks for everyone that tuned in on the YouTube live cast. We will do this again as well. We'll try to get better at letting everyone know. So if you've been working out on the trainer and listening, thank you. You've been doing your VO2s. Hope they went well. We like to say cry in the dojo to laugh on the battlefield. And yeah, that's it. And you also know what to do. Work hard, ride fast, have fun. And as always, consistency is the new FTFP. All right. Thanks, everyone, and have a great evening.